answering your tough financial questions for the past 26 years. It's Allworth's Money Matters with co-hosts Scott Hansen and Pat McClain. Would you like an opinion on a financial matter you're dealing with? Whether it's about retirement, investments, taxes, or 401ks, Scott Hansen and Pat McClain would like to help you by answering your call. To join Allworth's Money Matters, call now at 833-99-WORTH. That's 833-99-WORTH.
Welcome to Allworth's Money Matters. I'm Scott Hansen.
I'm Pat McClain.
And we are here in the studio at this very moment, but we're not in the studio live, number one, and we are recording this for a best of call show.
And the reason being, it's the day after Christmas, and don't you think we deserve a day off? Seriously. Don't you think that we have labored hard enough this year already that you want us to come into the studio the day after Christmas?
Who wants us to come in the studio?
Just talking the hypothetical.
Oh.
So we're not in, this is a tape. We're going to play some of our best of. These
tape?
Are, digital. We've recorded it somehow.
It was a tape. Well, we've been doing the show, by the way, we've been doing the show long enough we remember the tape. It was a tape. Remember the big reel-to-reel tape, and they would cut and splice it, and then they got the fancy ads they looked like 8 tracks, and they'd run the ads that stack them on top of each other.
Yeah, and the guy that actually was our producer would do like morning drive time on the rock and roll stations, and then on the weekends he'd come in to do our show.
He used to do one of those when they call them prank people.
Yes,
this is before now they have to get permission before they air something, but this is back in the time when it used to be live. And they would call somebody and prank them and I don't know why we're talking about that, but
it's interesting.
And he interviewed Santa for Christmas.
Oh, that's right, 1 year,
25 years ago.
It was you were out that day because your daughter was being born.
My first child was born on Christmas Eve 25 years ago,
and I did the radio show.
My life has been going downhill
with Santa. Do we have tape of that?
I hope not, because if that gets out, it's going to be bad for the business.
I was trying to fix Santa's financial situation as I was a relatively young advisor at the time.
Well, not only that, it's like it probably took us a couple years on the radio to the time we got to the point where I was talking to someone the other day, he's in a different city. I said, you got to be at the point where you're just totally comfortable with yourself. Like, don't try to be the best version of yourself on the radio. Just be yourself. Right?
I save the best version of myself for home. That's what
the whole family says. That Pat is such a wonderful man.
A lucky family.
My dad is the best.
All right, so
let's take some calls here. If you want to join us, 833-99-WORTH. We're talking with Holly. Holly, you're with Allworth Financial.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call.
Thank you, Holly.
So I have kind of a twofold question here. A little bit of my story is I have 3 children. My oldest is 19. I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. When I had my daughter, I was a single parent. I didn't have anything to put back for her. I was working 2 jobs just to pay the bill. So
and that's the 19. That's the 19-year-old, your daughter.
That's the 19-year-old. Okay. So now she's having to pay and work her way through college, which there's nothing wrong with that. But
that's what I did.
That's what I did.
That, I didn't save, but I just could not. So now my question is, what can I do now for my 4-year-old and my 1-year-old so that we do have something when they do get to that college age? And then also, is there something I can start now, even though my daughter is 19, that, would accrue interest over, 20, 30
We
years?
haven't had a call like this in six weeks.
Like someone thinking about the future?
Like a normal, like life is going to continue normally. This is the first call like this in 6 weeks.
Like I'm thinking about my kids 18 years from now?
Yeah, not like I'm pulling my hair out because I've got 4-year-old and 1-year-old.
Well, God bless you, Holly, for bringing some normalcy back to this radio show.
Well, for the younger two, the best savings vehicle, if you're thinking about having money for their education, is a 529 plan. And a 529 plan that just comes from a tax code 529. What it enables states to do is set up college savings plans, and you can get them throughout most of the major mutual fund companies and brokerage firms will have these available for you. And the money goes in. You don't get any sort of tax deduction like you would, say, in a 401k or an IRA, but the monies grow tax deferred, so you don't get a 1099 at the end of the year and have to report it on your income tax. It grows tax deferred. And if the money's used for education expenses, college and other trade schools and that sort of thing, all the interest and any gains is forgiven from income taxes. So it's a great place to save.
It acts just like a Roth.
Okay.
But the limits to the contributions are much, much higher than a Roth. So if you started savings on a monthly basis for that, perfect. I did it for my kids.
I did it for mine.
So I still have 3 in college, and we use those dollars for their education. And if your children don't go to college, you can change the beneficiary from one child to another child, to grandchildren or whoever.
Okay, so now if they choose not to do the college route and instead work, what else would you recommend?
Okay, those dollars could go to any other sort of trade school or any other sort of education for them. If instead, let's say as an example, you had saved $10,000 over the year, and let's say it grew to $15,000 by that time. That whatever gain would be subject to income taxes plus a 10% penalty on the gain. And if your original deposits would still come back tax-free, of course.
So secondary to that, right? So if you're saying, well, what happens if they don't go to college, trade school? We don't spend it that way. I would use a tax-efficient investment portfolio. But I would do the 529 first.
So you can set up what's called a custodial account, a uniform transfer to minor, UTMA, UTMA, or UGMA. You might have heard those before. The challenge with those is the dollars become the child's at age of maturity. Some states you can push to 21 or even 24, but it's eventually going to be theirs.
Regardless.
And I've been doing this long enough. I've sat with clients who are saying, how do I hide these dollars from my son or my daughter because of their drug problem, and I don't want them to know that these dollars exist. And so odds are that's not going to be your children because they're such angels now. They're going to be just perfect at age 18 through 25. But if it were myself, I would not put money in my child's name.
That's right.
At that age.
I'd keep it in my own name. And you can
just
and so
earmark
tax
an account.
efficient. You can buy an S&P 500 fund. It's relatively tax efficient. Keep it in your own name. But the 529 is by far the preferred method.
The 529, okay.
Yeah. And what state do you live in?
Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So I would check if some states give you a tax break if you contribute into that state's plan. So just Google Pennsylvania 529 and see who the provider is for that state. If you get a tax deduction, you'll want to use that state's provider. And what happens, the states will team up with some investment company. Some investment companies are great and low cost and some aren't. So if you don't get a tax break, then just look for...
So that addresses your 4-year-old and your 1-year-old. Now, the 19-year-old, there's lots of ways you could do it. If it's a responsible child, you can just gift money to the children, and they can...
Does she work at all?
She is working. Mm-hmm.
So here's what I do for I've got my 24-year-old and a 22-year-old, and I contribute to their Roth IRA. So they both, when they have work, they have wages, which enables me to contribute to the Roth IRA. The Roth IRA, again, there's no tax break for the money goes in. It grows tax deferred. If they save it till their retirement, it's going to be all tax free. If they choose to pull the money out ahead of time, they can pull some of it out for the purchase of a first-time house, as an example. They could also take out all of the contributions without incurring any tax.
Let me ask you a question, Scott. I do the same thing, but I give the money to my child and have them put it into the Roth. Do you put it directly into the Roth?
I should make my kid be more responsible. Instead, I enable them and take care of their finances.
And I do. And
although I did have my son do his income taxes, I was going to do it, and I thought, that's insane. I sat with him. I looked over his shoulder as he did the TurboTax.
How
or
old
whatever
is Blake?
program. He's 22.
Oh, so appropriate, right? So the idea behind that is to get them in the practice of actually saving for retirement.
So Pat's a better parent than I am.
Well, no, but I'm not completely off. I ask for copies of their statements of any money I give them so that I make sure they're not actually spending it.
But the Roth IRA, Holly, is
Perfect for the 19-year-old.
Yeah.
Perfect. And I would have them buy the S&P 500.
Yeah, I think my daughter is a Target 2060 fund.
Really?
Yeah.
2060.
It's with a low-cost provider. It's it's a small enough amount. It doesn't need a lot of management.
Yeah.
And it's a little more. It's total stock. It's essentially total stock market.
So basically, when she's 65 is when you actually are managing the dollars for her to spend it when she's 65. Is that right?
Well, I hope she doesn't tap into the money before that.
Yeah.
But
anything can happen.
Yeah, who knows? Right, as we've seen the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, but what a interesting a 19-year-old, 4-year-old, and 1-year-old.
Yeah. Does this help, Holly?
Yes, it does. It very much does, and I appreciate it. Like I said, my daughter's working now, but everything that she makes and everything we can contribute is going right to her college bill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and if she has a 401k where she works, that's you would ask her to put the money in that.
Okay. Okay, yes, that has answered my question.
And Holly,
I appreciate you taking the time.
You should be proud of your 19-year-old daughter going to school and making a life for herself. College is a luxury for many, particularly the kind of colleges that we have in the United States where you go and you live in the dorm, all that kind of crazy stuff. Do not feel bad whatsoever the fact that you didn't have a bunch of money saved up for your daughter by the time she was.
You're doing her. You may be doing her a big favor, making her.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And let's go and talk with Michael. Michael, you're with Allworth Financial.
Scott, Pat, thank you so much. Hey, I've got some money put away. I'm going to retire here shortly out of the military, and I'm not going to need this money that I put away into the thrift saving program, 401k style. It's really for my wife. She's quite a bit younger than I am. My question is that at 70 and a half, when they start forcing me to take that money, may I take that money, give it to my wife, and she puts it into like a Roth IRA or something because it's really for her?
Yeah, yes, but you don't have to wait till. By the way, it's 72 now with the change of the Secure Act. But if it makes sense to do it on the required minimum distributions, it may make sense to do it prior to the required minimum distributions.
Maybe, but then you got tax consequences.
It may make sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it depends on what your income is, and it depends on what your income will be under the required minimum distribution. So if it's the same, Scott, if it's the same tax rate at the RMDs as it would be on the non-RMDs, why wouldn't you do it?
This is why I'm calling you guys, and luckily I've already made an appointment with one of your people to be able to come and talk to you guys.
Why would you? What are you stating, Pat? To take money out early?
To convert to a Roth?
No,
convert some to a Roth today.
I don't know why I'm taking it out early. I'm not. That's why I'm calling.
Yeah.
And not necessarily to put in your wife's name.
You couldn't. So to answer your question, the technical question, you cannot take money from your retirement account and then put it in your wife's retirement account.
You can't. If
Correct.
you pull
but
it
if
out,
I take the cash distribution and I give it for the cash to my wife, she can do whatever she wants with the cash.
She can't. She cannot contribute it to a Roth IRA unless she has earned income.
you can't.
I'll have her retired too.
Yeah, got it. And you can't convert a required minimum distribution to a Roth, but you can convert.
But you can certainly earmark the dollars. So right now you're in a thrift savings plan, 457. It's got a beneficiary on it. You've got your wife listed as primary beneficiary. You're concerned something happens to you, money goes to her. Then you hit age 72 and you're like, dang, I got to take some money out. I really want this money to be for my wife. You can literally have it so it's money transferred from your retirement account to a non-retirement account. You could have it either set up in the name of your family trust, so it automatically goes to her, or you can have it set up on what's called a transfer at death account, so it automatically or the account can just be a joint account. of which she's a joint owner. So you pass away, and the assets automatically go to her.
And a step up in basis. So there's lots and lots of different choices.
And you live in California, which is a community property state. So technically, how many years you been married?
Oh, for 18 years.
Okay.
What's mine is hers.
There we go. So community property state, she has rights to half that account anyway.
So,
well, it's really for her. We're going to leave here, but again, I made an appointment with your people, and it sounds to me like I definitely need to see them.
well, yeah. So you threw out one scenario, and we gave you 4 or 5 different alternatives to that scenario based upon what you're trying to achieve, right?
Yeah, and I don't want to do it on my own. We make mistakes. We're laymen.
Well, some people could do it on their own, but where.
The danger is those that think they can.
And can't.
Yes. There's a lot of those too.
Yeah, we see that. So
Yes.
we appreciate the call.
Now we're talking with Luke. Luke, you're with Allworth Financial.
Hi, how are you doing?
We're doing great. Thank you.
I've been better, Luke.
So, oh yeah, I can imagine. It's been a rather rough year for all of us, I think.
I think you're right.
Yes. How can we help you?
So, to put it into simple terms, I'm pretty young. I'm around. I've been out of college for a couple years now. I have no debt whatsoever, and I have around about 45,000 in liquid cash, and I'm not sure what to do with it. I know the stock market is going up and down. I've already put about 11 into that, 11,000.
Into what?
And I'm just into stock market.
Yeah, what would you buy?
About
Specifically.
4,000 went into a money. It was more of a mutual fund.
Okay.
Which has not performed very well. I bought that over the course of a long time.
Okay.
But recently I put about 4.5 into individual stocks, anything from Disney to a chance on Southwest, etc.
Okay. How old are you?
About 26.
And what do you do for a living?
I work at a tree service company in Northern California.
And you graduated from college?
Yeah, I went to UC Davis, got a managerial economics degree, and got 2 emphases with that.
Just on a side note, are you guys doing much contract work with PG&E and the clearing of the electrical lines?
Actually, yes. We are a subcontractor for a company called Arborworks.
Okay.
Which is a rather large tree service industry, company within just California.
I trimmed trees as a young man. I was a climber and had my own little business for a couple of years, one of those little small businesses.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
There is
my previous life.
Luke, before we go any further, I'm impressed already by you, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you've saved all this money. You've got a college degree. You're out working in a trade, which, by the way, is unbelievably profitable business, this tree trimming.
Well, with the utility clearings and all that,
Yeah,
right?
it is. It's big business.
It gets really profitable once you get into some residential and stuff like that. Utility gets a little bit more tough.
Yeah, well, the margins
are
it's more competitive. But
Yeah.
so
I think Luke probably understands with his master's from Davis and working in the tree trimming business, probably understands the economics better than you do at the tree trimmers.
Yeah, fair. So what's your question for us? You've got this $45,000. You've invested some in the market.
Right. And so currently I have very few expenses. I happen to live with my aunt. So I pay for rent in terms of work around the house, and every once in a while I'll buy some home improvement items and stuff like that and help her out. So as it stands right now, I have very few expenses. I have 10% of my income going into a Roth, just to catch up because I was rather slow on getting on that.
You are 26, by the way.
I was kind of slow.
I know I'm a weird person, but here we are.
Well, it's better this weird than the kind of weird that you called and said you have 45 grand in credit card debt,
which wouldn't be unusual.
Oh no, I feel so bad when I know people that just racked up the debt right out of marriage or right out of high school, and it's so sad.
Well, you can only live your journey, right? Not theirs.
So,
right.
But here's the.
Well, let's ask him. Do you want to buy a house at some point in time, or?
Yeah, that's a good question. The answer is yes. I hope to buy a house within 3 years.
Okay.
Probably more towards the 3 to 5, but 3 would be nice.
And what part of savings really comes down to is what do you want these dollars to do? So if you said I save money because I don't like spending it on anything, and I have no idea what I'm going to do with it, and I might die with millions and leave to charity because I can't figure out how to spend money. There are people like that. That would yield to one sort of advice. Yeah. If you call and say, like you're saying now, I'd like to buy a home in about 3 years. That's a completely different type of investment thing. And then, so the question is, are there some other financial goals that you have?
Financial goals. I do. One, I always want to make more money. Just from a. Yeah. I'm probably going to end up marrying this girl who's still in college right now, but once she gets out, I don't trust that her industry will make a particularly large sum of money. So I'll probably be the primary breadwinner. And if that's going to be the case, I want to make sure to manage my money in such a way that she can be the discretionary spender and I will be.
By the way, if it doesn't work out with her, I've got a 24-year-old. She's beautiful.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, we both have a college graduate daughter. So.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. What a nice son-in-law. Isn't that strange that we're at that point in our life where we're actually shopping for our daughter's husband?
We wish we could shop for him. I think they have some say in the matter. Well, and how much do you have in your Roth?
That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure. I would have to double check.
Okay. And what about you? Do you have a 401k available through your employer?
Support? No.
How many employees do you have at the company?
A little less than 50.
Just ballpark it.
Or around a little less than 50 to 40,
so
depending.
You should have a 401k at your company. And by the way, if you don't, the state of California will mandate it coming up here in the next year.
And I said next year. There's there's some changes in the 401k rules where it'll be a lot easier for employers to offer them beginning in 2021. But anyway, so we're still in 2020.
So here's what you want to do.
I didn't know that.
You have if you have a company savings plan like 401k, you want to put the maximum in. You want to fund the Roth IRA to the maximum. If I were you, I would buy all equities
in the Roth.
I wouldn't worry about the market gyrations or anything because you don't care what happens day to day. You just want to know what it's going to be when you're 60 or 65 years of age, which, by the way, you have a lot of runway in front of you. And the cash, I would actually put in a high yield savings account. And I would go, what's the name of that website?
Bankrate.com. And here's why. If you, for long-term financial security, first of all, the way you're going to make money, Luke, and increase your net worth is not by picking stocks or, frankly, even invest in the stock market. It's going to be through your career. Right, so the more value you can add at the marketplace, that's going to have a direct correlation to your wealth, and then it sounds like you've already been on that track, and you will continue on that track, and then really, home ownership is a bedrock for solid financial planning. It just really is because you find people get later in life. Those right now that are 60 years old, their home's paid off.
They don't worry about the same thing that someone that's renting an apartment or
correct.
A house.
That's correct. Right. So we love the concept of home ownership, even though it's got its own issues. I just think from a financial standpoint, we've seen thousands of people. And so. Okay.
So, Luke, if you were Scott's son-in-law.
But I would clearly say there's no sense taking risk with your cash savings if we're going to be using it to buy a house in the next
few years. And it might not be 3 years. It actually may be a year or 2 years because you may see home prices actually come down here in the next 6 to 9 months. Wouldn't
We don't
surprise me
know.
at all. Would it surprise you if homes drop
No, it
10
would
to
not.
15% or 20%?
No, I expect there to be a surplus of homes in the market.
Right. So then so if you've got some cash set aside, so here's what the challenge would be. Let's say you say stock prices are down, the market's down again today. I'm going to go buy these stocks. The next thing you know, most of your cash is invested, whether it's in an S&P 500 fund or individual securities, and then it's 2 years down the road. The governor's still telling you can't do this and that. The economy's still in the doldrums, and you're thinking, oh man, there's this great house that's just come on the market. I can get it for a phenomenal price. And you go to get your 45 grand, and your 45 grand's worth 35 grand.
So because you invest
Your
particular time.
your time horizon's not long enough.
So if you go to bankrate.com, you'll see some of the highest yielding savings accounts, FDIC insured. That's where you want to put the bulk of the money.
Currently, the bulk of the money, around 40-ish of it, is in 40 of it is already in high yield savings in Ally.
Yeah,
Oh,
perfect.
perfect.
So you're doing the right thing.
I use the same bank.
You're doing the right thing.
You're 100%. You wasted your time calling our show.
I don't like to think it's a waste of time.
He's joking.
It's different perspectives.
He's joking.
I'm joking.
Luke, appreciate the call. And now we're going to take a quick break, and we'll hear some more best of calls.
Can't get enough of Allworth's Money Matters? Visit allworthfinancial.com/radio to listen to the Money Matters podcast.
Welcome back to Allworth Financial. I'm Scott Hansen.
I'm Pat McClain.
Let's head straight to the calls because this is Best of Calls as we are not live in the studio this week. We're starting off talking with Larry. Larry, you're with Allworth Financial.
How you doing, guys?
We're fantastic, Larry. How are you doing?
Good. My question today is about the 2020 charitable contributions part of the CARES Act. I was thinking that this was going to be a real benefit to me, and I don't see it as much as what the hype kind of initially was for it. It kind of said that we were going to have that it was not going to. There was no limit on how much you could contribute now, and it was going to help you on your taxes a little more.
So what were you trying to achieve?
Well, what I was thinking was that I'm not able to itemize my deductions, and I guess I was hoping that which means a lot of my charitable contributions do not benefit me from a tax standpoint.
How old are you?
And I am 60. I just retired about a year ago.
And how much would you like to give on an annual basis?
Well, I typically give between $4,000 and $5,000 a year.
And what's your income?
And I don't have any medical deductions. I don't have a home mortgage. I don't have.
Yep. Are you married?
Yeah, we file jointly. So we get $24,400 on the standard deduction. So.
What's your family income in retirement?
In retirement we make combined. My wife and I make right around $100,000.
So one thing
I make a six. Go ahead.
If you have the cash, one thing you could do, and this is a strategy that a lot of people employ, that I take advantage of the strategy, is you could set up what's called a donor-advised fund. And a lot of the big firms, Fidelity's got one, Schwab's got one. And it's almost like your own family foundation. Right? So what you can do...
In fact, you can name it anything you want.
Yeah.
You could call it the Tom's Family or the Larry's Family Foundation.
So
you could call it Tom, but it wouldn't make any sense.
And here's how this works. You put the money into the fund. And you get you're able to deduct that year what you contribute. but you don't have to give it to the charities that year. You can dole it out over a period of time. So as an example, you could say, I'm going to contribute $20,000 to this fund in 2020. Then, once the money's in the fund, you can distribute $4,000 to $5,000 a year over the next 4 years to your charities. So what you've done is you've bunched, for your own personal tax planning, you've bunched your contribution into one tax year. But for the charities, you probably, in all likelihood, you probably don't want to give them all the money at once, because then they'll spend it and they'll come back to you for the next year for more. And you'll say, wait, I just gave you 4 years worth. And they're like, well, that was yesterday. This is today. Come on, Larry, cough it up.
So to take that one step further, do you have a brokerage account outside of an IRA or 401k that has any appreciated stocks or mutual funds in it?
Yes. Yes, we do.
So take it one step further, and you actually gift those to this charitable account, right? And you get a deduction for the face value, and you never actually recognize any of the gain on it. So if I was your financial advisor sitting down with you, we'd say, okay, let's first of all determine how much we should give and then what we should give. So you might decide that you have, a bunch of money in cash, that you decided this year you're going to gift $50,000 into a charitable.
Or maybe it's in Procter & Gamble stock or whatever, right? I mean, maybe you've got some, we don't know your overall situation, but.
And you say, well, Pat, I didn't really want to sell that stock. I could turn around and buy that stock the day I give it away and move my cost basis up. At the same time, giving the same amount of stock to a charity. So
I see.
What you were benefited by this CARES Act. You were benefited with the proper tax planning.
And that is part of the CARES Act, all this that you just described?
Well, the limits are.
The limits on what you can contribute, because it used to be capped at, still appreciated securities is capped at 30% of your adjusted gross income, but cash assets above that is up to 100% of your income.
Where it used to be capped at 50.
60. It was 50, then the last act changed it to 60. But
you can use a combination.
This is a great planning year for you, Larry.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
You've got a number of options, and this is something like this is these charitable donor advised funds are perfect for someone like yourself.
I've used one for the last 20 years. 20 years?
Really?
Yeah. How long have you had?
Used probably close to it as well. Long time.
And it gives money. Giving money to charity makes it even easier, because you don't have to even write a check. You just go online and put in the tax ID number, and it fires it off.
And most of the time, it'll find you just put the charity's name in there, and it pulls it right up from the list.
Makes it so easy. In fact, once you do it, the only thing is, like, if you go to every church Sunday and they pass the basket, you don't throw the envelope. You don't get to throw it in an empty envelope and pretend.
All right. I can get away with that. I can be good with that.
But the nice thing about it, so it sounds like you want to be good stewards with your money. You want to participate by giving some money to your charities, and you want to do it over a period of time. And because you're thinking, I don't want to give it all at once, because the reality is, if you give it all at once, they still have needs the following year, and you want to be able to be there to participate and help in those following. That's what these accounts are designed for.
My wife and I fund ours about once every 4 years, and then we dole it out to charities.
Yeah, depending on what's happening, and
correct. And I used it as a time to rebalance my portfolio as well.
Give some appreciated securities.
Wow.
Right. So
that is a great idea.
A good advisor. You might want to go it alone, or you might want to actually get a good tax person or a good advisor to help you.
Well, I would at least run this by some other people before you pull the trigger on it. But
well, and I actually mentioned this to my financial advisor, and she didn't have a whole lot to say. So I probably will go back with this idea to her and see what she says.
All right. Actually, so you should ask her for the clip off this. Anyway.
I will.
Good luck.
I definitely want to.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much. This was a great idea. I appreciate it.
All right.
I appreciate
good planning opportunity.
Appreciate the call, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you, sir.
Bye. Next, we're in Rockland talking with Scott. Scott, you're with Scott Hansen and Pat McLean of Allworth Financial.
Hello. How you doing?
Great.
Thank you very much for taking my call. I love your show. I've been listening forever, and appreciate you getting me in. Wish you guys were still doing 2 hours, but I understand for personal reasons it's probably nicer doing one.
We haven't done 2-hour radio program in several years. We had what? We had a year where we did 3 hours, and
which is like an hour past.
I don't know how guys or gals do a radio show some do it every day for 3 hours. I don't know how they do it. But.
Yeah, so that's like 2 hours past my attention span. But what can we do for you?
Well, I enjoy you guys. I listen to you on podcasts when I don't get you on Saturdays.
Review us, please.
I will. I'll make sure I get on and do the 5-star review. What'd you say the other week? You had 3 or 4 reviews total. I'll bump you up by 20%, maybe.
Yeah. We're actually not allowed because of our industry. We cannot ask for positive reviews.
We can't. Yeah, we can't say like us on Facebook.
Yeah.
We could say connect with or something. We can't say like us.
But isn't
that funny?
But so if you go on there and do a review,
or give us a bad just give us an honest review.
You don't want a bad review, Scott. Why would you say that?
He just said he loved us. He's not going to give us a bad review.
But he's more than him or listening to this show.
Oh, please don't give us a bad review.
Thank you. All right, what can we do for you, Scott?
Please, actually, no.
Well, actually, here, let me say it. Anybody listening, please don't give them a bad review. They're awesome.
Thank you.
There.
Thank you. Now that we got the marketing out of the way, what can we do for you?
So I'm, as some of your other callers have said in the past, a sandwich generation. I have older parents and having issues. I've got kids. I'm 2 years away from having 2 kids in college. My sister has 2 kids in college, and my parents, who used to have a comfortable upper middle class life, are now living on Social Security alone.
Wow.
They're living on about $3,300 a month. Luckily, they own their home, but they live in a home that has property taxes, obviously, and also has a HOAs involved. So their cost of living there is about $800 a month. The value of the homes, probably $325, $330.
How old are they?
And he's turning 78 or 77 this year. 78 this year. And my mom's going to be 76 this year.
All right.
They've lost most of their assets in 2007 and due to some other issues. And so the things they have left is life insurance. And my mom's been servicing their life insurance policy. Unfortunately, she was allowing my dad, who had dementia, take care of them. And one of them ended up lapsing for lack of payment because he forgot to pay it. And his health is turned.
Did they send usually there's some sort of reinstatement period on these.
Yeah, and
it was beyond that. We tried.
Okay.
And there was no cash value in it whatsoever.
Don't know. It's identical to the policy I'm calling about now.
Okay.
They have 2 of them.
All right.
So, and it was just like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, this happened. We went back and forth with them. They wanted medical records and all this stuff that would have been just insurmountable to try and get on my father.
Got it.
California doesn't provide for a reinstatement due to medical.
What's the question on the existing life insurance policy?
Okay, so he's had this policy since April of '85. It is they call it a what kind of policy? I'm sorry, I just had it. It's by Voya companies.
Universal Life or Whole Life? Probably Universal Life.
It's called, they've got I just had it, sorry.
How much is the death benefit on it?
It's $100,000. It's a Designer Life Plus is what they're calling it.
And is there, Designer, I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there any cash value in it?
There's a loan for $14,400, so the payoff is $85,000. They sent her a letter apparently in 2016 saying that the cost of insurance was going up and that she needed to pay more, and she didn't. She continued to pay the amount she was used to paying.
Yep.
There is currently an accumulated value in it of about $15,000. Let me get to that page. Beginning accumulated value, and $14,963 is the ending accumulated value. But then there's also the loan for $14,480.
Let me just get some.
And a net.
Let me get some
and
clarity
a net
here.
Cash.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Is your major question here today is how are we going to help our parents?
Yeah. So they've sent her a bill for the arrearages on the payments of about almost $1,400.
You don't really have to pay that.
And the interest is $676. So we've got to come up with a little over $2,000 to keep it current. And,
So you've got here's I'm thinking you've got a couple options in front of you. All right, well, here's with this life insurance. You could do a couple different things. One is you can keep this thing going until the day your father passes away. Okay, it'll be $100,000 there, and then it's like, let's figure out how we're going to do this. Two, you can sell this policy. Someone would buy it from you. It would be.
You would actually get some.
Oh yeah, you get some cash.
You get some cash for this, and what happens is the person that buys the policy then becomes the beneficiary and the owner of the policy, and they're responsible for paying off the loan and making the premium payments to keep it in force. They get their return when your father passes away. But
this is the viaticals I've heard you talk about in the past.
Yeah. Well, we say don't invest in these life settlement companies or viatical companies. That doesn't mean there
isn't a market to sell into.
Yeah, and if you got a good policy to find someone to buy it from you. So that's.
But tell us about yourself. Can you afford to make the premium payments on this?
So my sister and I have gone through her bills, and we've actually lowered some bills that she's paying and made it possible for her to be able to make up the difference.
When you say her, you mean your sister or your mother?
My mother. She's got enough. She's got enough to make it.
Is your dad ill?
He's got dementia.
He's got dementia, and he's barely ambulatory.
Okay.
And
so don't sell the policy.
Don't sell the policy.
Do everything you can to keep the policy in force.
Do not let this thing lapse.
Yes.
And you can ask the company to do an what do they call it? In-force ledger.
I could call it midstream, but there's a different name for it.
They did just recalculate it out, and they said that $5.15 a month will make it current and cover everything, I guess, or something like that. I haven't seen that document yet.
But you might be able to pay less and still keep the policy alive. You might want to just figure out what's the absolute bare minimum that we can pay to keep this policy in force.
Yeah.
Well, at the very least, I think we're going to have to pay the $2,000 is what I'm getting.
Okay, so that they can walk you through that. The point being is, even if you had to lower your contributions to your company 401k, or your sister did, do not let this thing lapse.
No,
right?
Okay.
Don't let this thing lapse at all.
Okay. And that we've been looking at this all along as my mom's retirement because my dad's been in poor health for a long time, and this was always kind of like, when he leaves, this is how he's going to take care of her. And they already lost the one that was identical to this.
And have you considered a reverse mortgage on this home?
Thank you, Scott. That's where I was going to go with it next.
It's been mentioned. It's been discussed. We're trying to hold off on doing any of that because there's no long-term care. There's no other assets in place, and so we're trying to hold on to the one remaining asset she has and preserve it as long as possible because we don't know what's going to happen with him. We don't know if he's going to have an issue where
if you and your sister can help out with some of the cash flow needs over the next year or two, I would probably do that. If it would be a financial burden for you or your sister, I might do a reverse mortgage now.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, yeah.
And it doesn't mean you're giving up. Just think of it like a loan on the house. Think of it like a home equity loan. And you get construction so you have a line of credit to draw against, so you don't have to pull it all out. And that you just don't, instead of making the interest payments, the interest just accrues on itself. So over time, the loan gets larger, but presumably the value of the home will get larger over time. So whatever equity is there, it's still your mom's equity, and she eventually passes away. If there's still equity there, it goes to the kids. So it can really.
And there's just you and your sister, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And our spouses, which we have to negotiate with as well.
Them.
Yeah, I get that.
Those people. I understand.
Yeah.
Listen, I understand. I come from a family of 5 children, and we took care of
between siblings and then spouses of trying to just figure out who's going to. It's not easy.
Yeah. So
so a reverse mortgage
fixes that.
It would fix that.
Well, as a student of the Hanson McLean School of Finance, I generally accept that as a reasonable last ditch kind of.
Thank you. Good enough.
My sister and my spouse may be on different pages with that, so I'll have to work that.
Well, that's why.
Yep. So.
Yeah. And it's by the way, Scott, it's Allworth is now the
Oh, no,
new
no longer
brand
Hansen
for
McClain.
Hansen
But anyway, good luck to you. Thanks for the call, Scott.
Do everything you can to keep that policy in force 100%, and talk to the insurance company and figure out what is the minimum that we can pay. Even if it's going to go up year by year, you're fine with that. You don't need to have it level to the time he's scheduled to pass on mortality wise. What's the very minimum to keep the thing in force for the next year? All right. Next, we're talking with Trevor. Trevor, you're with Allworth Financial.
Hey, Scott and Pat. Thank you very much for taking my call.
Yeah,
I've been listening to you guys for years. I kind of consider myself to be the self-appointed president of your unofficial fan club at this point.
Well,
so
thank you.
Wow.
To you guys.
Listen, I've always wanted a fan club with more than one member, that being me.
Well, right now it's just me, but we are actively recruiting. So
okay. Well,
good luck on that.
Good luck to you. What can we do for you?
Yeah, so here's my situation. I'm 35. I'm married, no kids. We're fortunate to have 2 incomes. But here in a couple of weeks, I'm actually going to be leaving behind a 10-year career in the federal government to go into a private venture with a partner. So for a period of
Is this a business you're starting? You say private venture with a partner. Is this something that's already going on, or you're starting something new?
We're starting something new.
Good for you.
Thank you. Yeah, so for about probably 6 to 12 months, I'm probably going to have little to no income. So our household income is going to be reduced by probably about 60%. And kind of looking at some of the financial decisions to make surrounding that, I wondered if it was a good time to maybe take advantage of some Roth conversions with our tax-deferred accounts.
Yep.
So when I started looking into that, though, there's a lot to consider, and it's a little intimidating. Our time horizon, we're probably not going to retire for about 25 years. We are already relatively tax diversified with our savings. I would have to move some funds out of my federal thrift savings plan into something with possibly higher fees. So there's a lot to consider, and so I was just curious if you guys thought that was a good idea, and if so, potentially, how much should I look at moving, and how should I go about doing it?
100% think it's a good idea. You made the comment of moving from the thrift savings to something with higher fees. I disagree with that. You can get ETFs that are just as rock bottom price, so you can build the same portfolio with really low fees,
and actually have a much more broader selection inside of an IRA than a TSV.
But this is all predicated upon what your overall family income is for 2020, come December 31st of 2020.
And possibly 2021, because you said you didn't expect any revenue on this thing for 9 months?
Well, I'm just kind of projecting. I mean, I would, on the safe side, I think, 6 months to a year without any, real measurable income. Could be sooner than that, or it could take longer. So, yeah.
So
but
what's your family income going to be already for 2020? When your wife's going to be working the full year, you've got more than half a year.
Sure. So right now, our annual income, as it stands right now, is about $210,000 per year. And then as soon as I leave my job, that's going to drop to about $85,000 annually. So somewhere in the middle, I guess, for 2020.
Yeah, so 140.
Yeah, 150 probably for the year.
Right there. So,
and you live in California? Or what state are you in?
We're currently in Maryland. We'll probably be moving
Maryland.
back to California at some point.
What's the state income tax like in Maryland? Top rate.
I'm off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I think it's on par with California. It's relatively high tax.
So I would defer the decision till December, and then I'd probably do projections out to 2021 to see what you thought the income looked like in 2021. But I wouldn't make a decision now. I wouldn't make it until the end of December. My guess is that you'll probably, if you end up doing it, you'll do it in 2021.
Do you have much cash outside? The challenge, part of the challenge is when you do a Roth conversion, you got to pay the taxes now. So the taxes have to come from somewhere. So it either comes from money that's in your retirement account, which negates some of the point of it, or it comes out of some money you've got saved up somewhere. And if at the time when you're starting a new business,
you want that cash.
Yeah,
usually.
And so our cash. So we have about $40,000 cash, and then we have a brokerage account with about $90,000 in it, and there's very little gain in there. So I'd consider if I were going to do it, I guess I would have to take the cash from one of those two
That's
buckets.
right. So $130K in cash. So here's I'm going to speak for Scott, Because he looked at me and I'm like, I know what Scott's thinking. Scott's thinking that opening a business is really, really difficult. And you're going to run into some headwinds that you did not expect that may require cash. And the objective of opening the business is to grow your net worth and or lifestyle around what you want to do. And that $130,000 in cash, if you do a Roth conversion and give it to the government,
or some of it,
you're not getting any of it back. Is that what you were thinking,
yes.
Scott? So you're thinking
that, and if your income, taxable income from the year was going to be $40,000 or $70,000, and you were clearly in a 12% marginal tax bracket, then it's a no-brainer.
Well, that's why I said you wait till December, and then my guess is you're not going to do it for 2020, but you may do it for 2021.
But you hope not to. I mean, I'm hoping your business
I
is
hope
going.
that you make so dang much money that you don't, you can't afford to do it. Chances are, right?
Here's what I would worry about this come November. I would give it no more thought. I'd spend that energy figuring out how we're going to make money in the business.
Okay, and so I did have a question for you, Trevor. I think that's good advice. I assumed you're vested in your 10 years with the federal government. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. That's all I wanted to make sure. You said you were a devotee of the plan. You knew how important that vesting was at 10 years of the federal government. So
yeah, and
yeah, that was why I chose to stay right out to 10 years.
Yeah. Well, you're a poster child for good financial planning. I mean,
call us.
And good luck with your business. I think that's great.
Call us at any time.
And frankly, when we started Hanson McLean, I was married, no kids. It's an easier time when you've got a spouse bringing in an income. Well, that is about all the time we have for our best of calls. I hope you got something useful out of these calls. This is our last show of the year, but as a Christmas present to us, we are asking a favor of you. If you listen to this program or listen via podcast, please go to your podcast provider and give us a rating.
If you can. Preferably.
If you can.
Some platforms don't allow you to rate them.
Okay, fair enough.
So if your
platform,
not if you're not technically able to.
If you can't, I have no hands.
Well, that's not nice either.
Well, that's like what does it mean? I can't. I'm capable.
Well, okay, listen. We assume that you could give us a rating in some form or fashion.
Yes,
and it would be nice of you. And the reason is, the higher the ratings, the higher the show. The higher the show, the more people listen. The more people listen, the better it is for us personally.
That's my dad said to me, Scott, why do companies always have to keep growing? I mean, why do they always have to grow?
Well, that didn't sound like your dad. This would be your first. This was your first holidays without your dad.
Yes.
Yeah, I loved your dad.
Well, thanks. I did too. So anyway, enjoy the rest of your 2020. I think we're all looking forward to a fresh year next year. This has been Allworth Financial's Money Matters.
This program has been brought to you by Allworth Financial, a registered investment advisory firm. Any ideas presented during this program are not intended to provide specific financial advice. You should consult your own financial advisor, tax consultant, or estate planning attorney to conduct your own due diligence.